I don't mind Brian over the radio because I think he really does a great job in that respect. It's just when you have to look at him.
And it's good news for Senator John McCain. He doesn't have to look at me. He's got me on radio. Hey, welcome to the latest hour of Brian and the Judge. Senator John McCain, Republican out of Arizona. You may have heard of him. Senator McCain, welcome back to Brian and the Judge.
Thanks, Brian.
Do you stand by that statement that you made about him, by the way, Senator McCain?
I've received more mail and emails and agreements than most anything that I've ever said. Could I just mention, Judge, you did a great job out in Arizona at the Tea Party, and it's very, very helpful that you came out there.
Well,
we
thank you.
It.
Beautiful part of the state, and I was happy to be there. Do presidents ordinarily take a long time, longer than we usually know, to decide to deploy large numbers of troops, because we usually don't know when the request for the troops come in? So in other words, is the time that President Obama is taking, does it just seem longer because we know what General McChrystal requested and when he requested it, or is this too long?
Oh, it's way too long, particularly since the president announced the strategy back last March. And it's exacerbated by the fact that General McChrystal has said the situation is deteriorating. If it's deteriorating, i.e., more American losses, the sooner you reverse that deterioration, the safer the men and women who are in harm's way over in Afghanistan will be, and it will have a more secure environment. It's tremendously unsettling to me that this kind of delay that's been going on. Now I read in the media that he may wait till he comes back from his trip to Asia. What is there to understand? That we have a deteriorating situation. We have a general and a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Petraeus who have recommended a strategy that will succeed. And, to say that we have a corrupt government in Afghanistan, so therefore we shouldn't do anything, well, if we do nothing, what is the inevitable result, according to General McChrystal and the best minds we have? A return of the Taliban, which the Afghan people are violently opposed to, that kind of return of that kind of brutality, and Al-Qaeda, therefore, a base for attacks on the United States of America. It's not that complicated, particularly since we have a strategy that worked in Iraq you can adopt to Afghanistan.
You understand the military, you understand politics. I think it was 3 weeks ago, Senator, I watched you on a Sunday show, and you said, I talked to President Obama, we talked about the war, and he has to worry about his left. And this is what I put together, that you talked about it, he mentioned to you, this is just my own conclusions.
No, he did not say that.
Did he not mention to you about his left, or is that just your opinion?
I said, I know this is a difficult decision because your base is very much opposed to it. He did not. He didn't bring it up nor acknowledge that. That's my assessment. I don't think there's any doubt that he has a very strong opposition from the left political base. So I have some sympathy for him. I had some sympathy for President Bush when he had to overrule those military leaders at the time in order to implement the surge. I mean, I felt sorry for. I'm sure that people felt sorry for Harry Truman when he fired MacArthur. But the fact is that the president has a tough decision in that he's sending young Americans into harm's way.
Should General McChrystal be wary of a government in Afghanistan whose legitimacy is seriously to be questioned? And if the story about the CIA paying President Karzai's brother a lot of cash, notwithstanding his drug dealing, is that something else we should be concerned about?
Well, somebody over in the CIA, pretty high up, should be fired, in my view, because that's just not the way we should do business. Maybe that's the stuff of novels, but it certainly shouldn't be the behavior of the United States government. Look, one of the aspects of successful insurgencies is that it's usually triggered by a lousy government, okay? And the government in Iraq wasn't so much corrupt, although it was certainly that, but it was collapsed when we started the surge. So you go in there and you establish an environment of security. Even if we'd had this runoff, there would have been large sections of Afghanistan where they couldn't have held an election because the areas are under Taliban control. And you pressure the government to clean up its act. The people pressure the government. You schedule additional elections in the future, and governments get stronger. Maliki's government is not strong today, but it certainly is one heck of a lot better than it was at the time we started the surge. These things all spring from an environment of security.
President Obama said one thing against you, and he said something else in the spring, and he said something else in the summer than he's doing in the fall. What do you think he wants to do?
I think he is very inexperienced. I think he is surrounded by some people who are giving him advice that it could be very harmful politically. I think he also has a vice president who was wrong about, as far back as Desert Storm, wanted to divide Iraq into 3 countries, a Secretary of State who, when General Petraeus came back here with the strategy for the surge, he said, I would have to willingly suspend disbelief to believe that the surge will work. He has a national security advisor who wanted to withdraw from the borders to the borders of Iraq and kill al-Qaeda from there. There is, except for Secretary Gates, there's nobody in this inner circle that supports what is clearly the strategy we need to employ.
I'm curious about your criticism of the National Security Advisor, a former 4-star Marine Corps commandant.
And a friend for many years.
Right. I mean, is he not there? I was heartened when General Jones was put in the inner circle. Were not you?
I was too. Yes, I was too. I just don't know what role the National Security Advisor is playing right now. I don't know what his recommendations are, and I wish he would engage forcefully. As I say, he was wrong in his recommendations as to how we could succeed in Iraq, but we're all wrong from time to time. I'd like to see him openly advocate a course of action that's in support of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Petraeus and General McChrystal.
Here is David Plouffe yesterday, Cut 11, talking about you.
I think that this is one of the most weightiest decisions he'll make in his presidency, and I think
he's been accused of dithering on this.
Yeah. Well, I notice our former opponent accused him of that. And again, I would refer you back to last fall, where I think people chose steady leadership over a more reckless approach, and I think what's going on right now in Afghanistan proves that the country got it right last fall.
Well, let me just say that, of course, it wasn't me that said he was, quote, dithering.
Dick Cheney was.
But second of all, I can't respond to people like that. What is that young man's experience in any of these issues? And so, I mean, if I spent my time responding to that, I would be depriving the people of Arizona from the service that they deserve.
If you had to do it all over again, Senator McCain, would you have voted differently on the Bush administration stimulus packages, particularly TARP, now knowing that the government has not spent the money as it said it would and is trying to regulate the internal operations of corporations?
Well, first of all, Judge, let me remind you, I led the fight against the stimulus package. We had a proposal for a stimulus that would work, and a lot of the things that have gone wrong are a result of the stimulus package. Second of all, the President of the United States, the head of the Federal Reserve, and the Secretary of Treasury all tell you that we're facing a financial meltdown of unprecedented proportions, and they need to vote. You are obviously influenced that. But the point is, they told me that they were going to address that. Bernanke and Paulson told me they were going to address the housing crisis.
Right.
They, roughly 3 days after they received the vote for TARP, they switched it to bailing out large financial institutions on Wall Street, which is now I just had 2 town hall meetings on Friday and Saturday. People are angry, and they should be. They're not only angry is not the word.
If the government had been truthful with the Congress, it would never have passed.
No. We're going to bail out GMAC again. Do you think, Judge, that Chrysler is going to survive survive. And what did we give them? $25 billion. And people on Central Avenue in Phoenix would love to have just a small loan. Just a small loan to stay in business, okay? And we're sending billions to these financial institutions, and they give these obscene bonuses. I'm telling you, the anger out there is real. You've seen it, Judge,
right.
And it's justified. So would I have, if I'd have known they were going to spend the money the way they were going to? No, I wouldn't have. If I'd have known they were going to spend the money they were going to. If they were going to spend the money the way they told me they would to address the housing crisis in America, which was the catalyst for all of this, then I think things might have turned out a little bit differently.
Not to get your ire up again.
I mean, you know, when I come back from being with the people and meeting these small business people that come to the town hall meeting, they say, I lost my business. I've lost my job. I can't stay in my house. You know, it becomes more than an academic inside the Beltway exercise.
Right. Right.
But
you've seen it, Judge. You've been out there.
Right,
Brian,
I was out
you've
there.
Seen it.
Yeah, Senator, I got to ask you something. In the big picture, do you think we're in the wrong mindset as a country? We expect everyone else to help us. We're always looking for somebody to blame. Are there very few people who are just saying, okay, my industry collapsed. I got to learn something new. I got to find a way to survive rather than look what they did to me?
Well, I think both, because one of the things about look what they did to me, the innocent bystanders who are being killed by this are the small business in America, the ones that are the job creators, where the entrepreneurs and the innovators come from. Meanwhile, the billions of bonuses are going on, and also I think we should make sure that we fix the problem so it doesn't happen again. Have we done anything to really change things so that we won't see this same kind of risk-taking and bonus giving and all that kind of stuff that led to the last crisis?
Nope.
Frankly, I haven't seen it. So to just, you know, hey, we're going to move forward, I don't think that's – I think we should say that. But I think we should also say, wait a minute, what happened? What do we have to do to prevent this? Again, did you see in the paper this morning, GMAC may get several more $1 billion. I could introduce you to thousands of small business people that need maybe a couple of thousand to stay in business, to keep their doors open. Okay?
Unfortunately, as you know, the wording of that TARP statute, which in my view is unconstitutional because it gives the Secretary of the Treasury vast discretion as to how to spend federal funds rather than the Congress deciding how it should be spent. And he may very well give GMAC that money, and there's not much any of us can do about it.
It also required for accountability and transparency, which there has been very little of.
Agreed.
You know, Jeb Hensarling was on this board, you know, that was appointed. Have him on the show sometime and tell you about the total lack of transparency.
I understand that. And also the fact is that a lot of the stuff that was going on for the non-economic experts who had a dozen years in that industry, it was over everybody's head. So we're sitting there playing defense as a nation saying, how did this happen to us? But in the big picture...
Listen, you know one of the things that people understand, they lent money to people who couldn't afford to pay it back. Okay?
Right.
And part of that was motivated by pressure from the Congress, from the same people that are supposed to be reforming it, Congressman Frank and Senator Dodd, called the Community Reinvestment Act. It said they almost forced them to lend loans in areas where to people that couldn't pay it back. Right, Judge?
You're exactly right. Do you remember when the stock market lost over 10% of its value in October of 1987, and everybody around Ronald Reagan wanted him to do these big stimulus packages, and he refused. And by February of the following year, it had completely recovered. Does anybody still believe in the free market in Washington?
Well, it can't be more than 40 of us.
Hey, we asked Jim.
Look, Judge, I am optimistic because I believe that there is a grassroots revolution going on, a peaceful revolution going on out there that's going to affect the elections in 2010, and it's going to bring people to office. And I'm not sure they're necessarily Republican because we Republicans haven't convinced people. We're just not on the same spending spree we were on for 8 years and betrayed them. But there's going to be the same thing you see in New York 23, only in different manifestations.
Senator, it's been 1 year since Barack Obama defeated you for the presidency of the United States.
Thanks for bringing it up.
You have to say it that way.
But I mean, you're a guy that seemed to turn the page literally the next day. I think you went to Starbucks and you were back on talking. And let me ask you, have you looking back a year from now, do you say what if?
No, my hero, Teddy Roosevelt, get back in the arena. Get back in the arena and fight and get a little bloody and carry on the fight. I don't think the people of Arizona need my participation here in Washington at any time in all the years I've been honored to represent them.
Well,
conditions are terrible. I can't waste time feeling sorry for myself.
Are we doomed to big government, federal government regulating private behavior because of the huge majorities in both houses of the Congress? Do you feel like you're shoveling against a tide with a 40 versus 60 disadvantage in the Senate?
Yeah, but look, American public opinion is changing, Judge.
Yes, it is.
Look at the recent poll about people who consider themselves conservative versus liberal. A lot of people now are considering themselves liberal because they see what big government is doing. So, look, I believe in the greatness of America, but I also believe in the intelligence of Americans. We politicians always underestimate how smart they are and how much attention they're paying. And I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be a rough 2 years. I think they're going to pass a health care reform bill, if that's what you want to call it. One of the great massive takeovers of the private sector in American history, and I think we're going to pay penalty for it for years and years to come. But I think we can minimize that by being the loyal opposition. If the president makes the right decision on Afghanistan, I want to be there to support him every step of the way. But in other areas, such as this government takeover of health care, we've got to fight him every step of the way.
As President Obama, you see how composed and calm he is in front of the people, how confident he is taking questions. Do his actions defy his appearance?
Well, let me just say, everything was going to be different in the world, and we're all going to love one another, and we're going to sit down together, and everybody's going to be happy, and, everything's fine now. Well, the realities of the world, look at what the Iranians are doing in these so-called negotiations. The Palestinians, understandably, in some ways, are refusing to negotiate. The Israelis are standing up for what I believe what is right for Israel, and that is including the natural growth of these settlements. In our own hemisphere, Chavez continues to act in a, we don't have to go through that long laundry list.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed because national interests are what pervades international relations. But I want to give this president credit. I want to help him. I want to support him where we can in the cause of peace. But I want to assure you this is a dangerous world, and Russian behavior. Remember the big deal they made out of an offhand remark of Medvedev about sanctions against Iran? These are difficult times, but finally we got to go back to what Ronald Reagan used to do, and that is stand up for human rights, whether they be the people in Iran or whether they be the people in Venezuela or whether they be people. Human rights. That's what America should be standing for.
Senator McCain, thanks so much. Brian and the Judge.